We just have this appetite, and if you've got a great idea, you've got a willing community that's going to get behind your idea.
You know, some of the advice that I would give entrepreneurs coming to Norfolk County would be to think outside of the Norfolk box, but don't forget what's in the Norfolk box. Because we have a lot to offer, we have a lot of great people, a lot of great opportunities.
Norfolk County.
Entrepreneurs grow here.
Norfolk County.
Ideas grow here.
Norfolk County.
You grow here.
You grow here.
You grow here.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more.
again. So it's already 1:40. We only have maybe kind of 3 hours. We are going to go through department by department. Let's try today to not get too hung up in issues. So we know, as an example, the training component, we are going to see that is going to be in every single department. So if the desire of council is that we're going to say, okay, Norfolk County is no longer paying for, university or college programs, and the training budget should be reduced to only those programs that would further benefit your position here, as in conferences or seminars or so on, then we will, over the next 2 weeks, be able to send them back and say, okay, this is what, we want to see what that number is and have that removed and to be approved when we come back to do the budget. So things like that. If we want to know how much, what consultants are in a particular division, what those consultants are. So we could touch on a little bit of that stuff today, but then we'll send them back until we reconvene again in a couple weeks. Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we will start with Mayor and Council. I briefly started this not too long ago, but just to reiterate, some of the, so Mayor and Council Services is basically, obviously, Mayor and Council, and does that include clerks? Or clerks is under clerks is under CAO, sorry. So it's strictly Mayor and Council Services. A couple of the budget drivers in there, as I mentioned, the adjustment for the tax break that used to have, that the province took away. The $12,000 is there for the FCM membership, and as mentioned before, the $50,000 contribution to the Delhi Medical Center. There's a 5-year term. 2018 was the last year, so that one came off. As well, in this budget, it's worth noting I believe we have about $63,000 in municipal grants that we budget in here, and that comes out of this cost center as well. So that's Mayor and Council Services in a nutshell. If there's any questions, be happy to answer them. If not, I can turn it over to Nicholas Loeb to introduce the Office of the CAO.
Thank you, James. So I'll be doing the Office of the CAO, although I'm going to pass it off to Andy when we get to Council Services, which are within that. So I'll do the Office of the CAO portion and the County Solicitor portion. So generally speaking, the budget drivers, there's actually a significant uptick in recoveries to the division. That's because of the way we're allocating the legal budgets for this year. So this past year was the first year of the Office of the City Solicitor, and we'd done sort of a mix of leaving some budgets in other departments and then adding a portion to the City Solicitor. This year we're just putting it all through my office. So that's why there's a significant uptick in the recoveries. That's the interdepartmental charges item that James explained earlier today. So none of this is new sort of recoveries or new expenditures. It's just moving around the way that we're assessing the interdepartmental charges there. There's a slight reduction also in salaries. That's because when they hired the county solicitor position, they had to anticipate that it could possibly be at the top of the job rate. I'm not at the top of the job rate, so you get that savings this year. You're very welcome. And then the other ones that were in the CAO office in terms of budget drivers were ones that you've addressed. So TAC and RFAB were in there, as well as the FCM item. And I think other than that, I know offhand the county solicitor training and meeting items if you'd like to hear them today. But if we're saving that for another day, then we can do it another day. And other than that, I'm open to questions.
I'm not sure if it's Mayor and Council Services, or I think Office of the CAO. It might have actually been Mayor and Council Services. The lottery user fee recovery, does that go in there?
I was going to, sorry, through you to yourself, Mayor. I was going to leave that one for Andy. That's Andy's group. So if I pass off to Andy, I think he'll address that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. As your new council, I'll go through a little more detail to give you an idea of some of these areas, because you won't have seen these stats before. To jump down on page 414 to the Records and Information Management, as required under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Personal Privacy Act, we need to provide a response to all Freedom of Information requests within 30 days. A lot of municipalities will address this by sending out a letter indicating they require more time to fulfill a request. We only do this as a last resort, so as a result, 97% rate, we're likely close to 90% closure on those cases. I know in 2017 our number was 93% closure after 30 days, so that's a complete response and file done. Although the Information and Privacy Commissioner has not released their 2018 annual report, based upon their 2017 numbers, Norfolk County can expect to be within the top 30 municipalities in the province when it comes to FOI response. So we have very good FOI response here, very good information, and we try to not just delay it, we try to provide full response. To compare our rates to other municipalities, in 2017, the municipal average was 85%, so we've got 97, and the provincial average was 75%, so we're very good in that. The 3% lack of compliance that we had is somewhat out of our control. That's really an incident or two where other divisions in the county have for some reason indicated they would make a deadline in providing us information, and then something happened at the very last minute and we weren't informed, so we couldn't get out a letter asking for an extension in time. FOI requests are an area of growth for all municipalities. We received 3 in the first 2 days back in 2019. Underneath this, there's a real increased desire for the public for information. So for as large of an increase we see in these formal requests, it does not match the informal increase that we receive. So ensuring quick responses and looking at better methods for making information public is a real critical focus of us in 2019. One aspect of this is bringing forward a proactive disclosure policy for council to consider. With any policy, we try to look at improvements that we can do within our existing budget, resources and staffing. It's a running joke I have with a lot of fellow clerks that they've become retirement communities for people from big cities who've taken up new full-time jobs of requesting information. So that is something that is going on across the province, and everybody is seeing these increased demands. All this is simply to say options will be provided, but there's also a need to reasonably manage public expectations on what is possible for a municipality of our size and resources. Anything can be done, but there's just always cost associated. Although it isn't something directly attributable to council services, it's important to acknowledge that a great deal of effort in advanced planning was done in 2018 to try to get a year's worth of reports done and before council in 6 months. We foresaw in 2017 that we would be entering the longest lame duck period in the history of this county. As you can see, 326 reports were presented in 2018. In many cases, comparing one report to another is like comparing apples and oranges, but that 326 number is really impressive regardless. And I also always have to reflect that we cut over 100 hours of meeting times for CIC and council. Any year where we can cut 100 hours of meeting times is amazing to me, and I'm going to mention it. I don't think there's anything my office can do that makes senior management or council happier than trying to get you out of here at 7:30 or 8 at night. People have a lot of happy faces when we do that. In terms of the proposed 2019 budget, we never like to present an increase. As you can see, 85,100 of this amount is new interdepartmental charges assigned to council services. 68,300 of that is transfer cost for office space here in the county administration building. To explain that, there was no physical location move of council services. We were restructured from ECS to under the CAO, so we did not move. There was not new furniture built or anything like that. It's an interdepartmental charge. Another 30,000 is related to the Integrity Commissioner budget, which hopefully will come in well under. We also are lucky to have a number of junior staff, so that is why we see a salary and benefits increase of 27,300. So if you take all those together, we're looking at 142,400 in increase. Actually, I think we removed the 10,000 for RFAB and for the TAC committee there, so that would be slightly less. But you can kind of see the pressures in our budget that we don't have much direct control over. Council Services was able to reduce the transfer to election reserves by $10,000 in 2019. Although we don't have any major election expenditures in 2019, the process is that we fund the election every year so that in an election year you don't see a huge increase in cost. So council pays a bit into a reserve every year, and then in an election year we borrow from that reserve. Right now, it looks like our 2018 election will come in well under budget again. So I'm very proud that both our 2014 and 2018 election have come in for less money than the 2010 budget, although all vendors' costs have increased. So it's really been an exercise, Stephanie and myself, in efficient management, management of staff time, because that's the biggest cost with the election, to really keep those costs in line. And hopefully, it goes without saying that there are a number of areas with the election that we hope to improve upon prior to 2022, and there will be opportunities for council to provide ideas on what they would like to see prior to that. Now, I'll begin to touch briefly on licensing and fees. To begin with marriage licensing, Norfolk County used to have the market cornered in this area of civil marriages. However, a lot of neighboring municipalities have begun providing the services. So as a result, we begin to see our revenues decline in this area, and I don't think that that will ever turn around or change. In terms of lottery licensing, we've done a lot to advocate for the province for reduced regulations in this area. However, we're unsuccessful. At the same time, the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario has been allowing the expansion of province-wide break-open tickets. So municipalities and small local charities across the province are being forced out of the lottery market by large-scale charitable organizations. So a lot of the break-open tickets now are done by charities that are based in Toronto, not our local charities, and that goes right into the revenue that we were getting, and as well as local charities. And we've brought this issue before council, and we've also advocated to the province upon this on the last term. The closure of the Chances Bingo Hall a couple years ago also had a real impact on local charities as well as their associated revenues. One thing that has been a real big success for Norfolk County is 2016, Council Services proposed a new Chase the Ace initiative that has been very successful. We're one of the only area municipalities doing this type of raffle. The Simcoe Rotary Club was the first on board with Chase the Ace, and they have raised approximately $100,000 for charity through this to date. This is just their takeaway from the actual draws. This doesn't account for the economic benefits to community halls or legions where the weekly draws are held. So there's a lot bigger economic impact that's happening than just these Chase the Ace draws. We anticipate that we could have as many as 5 Chase the Ace going on concurrently in 2019 throughout the county because no one provider has been able to meet the demand for tickets. So the public really likes Chase the Ace, and it's really the big jackpots get people excited, and the weekly draws get people excited, and they get people in legions and community halls just to have those weekly draws. So they're really being a great economic driver for our community. While this is a really worthwhile initiative that we're quite proud of for council services, the reality is for each one of these we only get $1,000. So and this is multi-weeks. We get $1,000 for 40 weeks of administration in some cases. So the county would have made much greater revenue on raffles if we did not do Chase the Ace. We're doing it to support the community, essentially.
So, could we just,
So sorry, I just took a quick drink there. Sorry, I just a little bit about just one little bit about business licensing, and then I'll finish up. Sorry. In terms of business license fees, there's some uncertainty for revenues as council needs to make an assumption on Friday the 13th. Right now, we're budgeted for $21,000, so you can go up or down in that amount, but if you do too much to the business licensing revenues, we will be in trouble. So there is the ability for council to make any decision they want in terms of Friday the 13th, and we'll still be able to come in close to budget or on budget, regardless of what you do. what we're doing in terms of business licensing, and certainly this is a lot of Stephanie's area, we're going out and we're doing significant outreach and stakeholder engagement this year. One of our desires is to simplify our fee schedule, as I would challenge anyone to find a municipality of our size with business licensing fees or schedules as complex as ours. It's really hard for people to get through this, and I really see simplifying our business licensing fees and our structure as important to potentially delivering online applications, which would be the next step. But we're going to go out and we're going to look and get a significant stakeholder consultation throughout 2019. We're going to bring that back to council and get your input, and as always, we do this with our own resources, so it sometimes takes us a bit longer to get through the whole engagement process, but there was a huge overhaul of the business licensing in 2016, and whenever you do a big change like this, we really have to go back and review everything that's happened. One of my findings certainly is that we were perhaps a bit overambitious with business licensing. I don't think that we have the enforcement capacity to enforce all of the areas that we have. So we'll probably have to look at removing some of the regulations, getting something that's a bit more reasonable for the community, and something that we can actually enforce here. I do know, so that's essentially everything that I have, and sorry, so I'll answer any questions you might have, and I hope that gives you kind of an overview of what we're working on.
Councillor Columbus.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Good presentation, Andy. And I was somewhat surprised about the revenue on lottery licensing being down so far, $15,000. Is that because of, we get a lot of organizations asking how come they got to do this and that, and I know we tell them that it comes down from the province. So are you saying that that's become more lenient by the province and that we can reduce some of that red tape that some of these organizations have experienced?
Through you, Mayor Chop, I think we advocated quite a lot with the province for reduced regulations, and the answer, we went to the Attorney General, and the answer we got was a fairly hard no. But through the process, the amount of work that our staff have done with the local groups has been fairly significant, and we have reduced, the reason why we were able to do the Chase the Ace was because we reduced kind of our red tape in that area to enable people to do it. We are still meeting compliance on all the files, but we're working with groups on an ongoing basis to make sure that they can get what they want and need. We had a lot of troubles with, you might recall last term with the hospital, the Norfolk Foundation. They're on board now, so we've been able to reach compliance with them, and it's always a difficult portfolio because the province takes their 4% of whatever we issue. We do all the work, and the province holds us to a very high standard of what we need to require of these groups. But I think we've had a lot of successes in that area.
Okay, thank you for that. And the marriage licenses, I guess you've explained that because other counties are doing that as well. Probably fewer people get married these days. And you mentioned the election expenses. When will we have a sunset review of the 2018 election so that we don't forget all the hiccups that we had, like people having to drive 25 kilometers to a polling station? When are we going to do a sunset review? Sooner than later. I don't think we can wait till 2022 or whatever it is.
Through you, Mayor Chop, we can certainly, I think the next thing in terms of the election to come forward to council would likely be consideration again of the ward boundaries, which we are planning to bring forward, and we could certainly have discussions on the comments around there. We have already posted our accessibility review from the election, and it does have a number of proposals in it to address things like the 25 minutes and outreach in the western side of our county to engage stuff. The options that will be presented to council, like mail-out ballots or internet voting. I think a lot of municipalities, one of the challenges with this last election is I think a lot less municipalities will be doing internet voting going forward because so many of them went down and had to extend polling hours. But I do think in a municipality of our size, it's very reasonable to have things like pre-registered mail-in ballots and stuff like that that would enable snowbirds and people on the west side of the community to do stuff and vote. One of the issues that we did have was elimination of a polling location for accessibility reasons, but it's a challenge when the province still thinks that they would hold it. So we're holding a higher standard than the one that's regulating us for accessibility, which is unusual.
So it sounds like you really don't want to have a meeting about this, but if councillors experienced issues, should they be sending those issues in to you, like about travel distance and voting times?
Sorry, through you, Mayor Shaw. Of course, send it on to us, and I mean, certainly there will be discussions, and we will include it in all our planning. There's no reluctance to have a meeting. We do bring forward all those things, but our election planning cycle, we're going in now into the audit and the audit and finance aspects of the election, which will be our next stage in April and March, which is going to be considerably more complicated and involved than it's ever been before. But our next stage of election planning, usually we bring something forward 2 years before the election, and we get all your input on in aspects such as that.
Thank you.
Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Clerk, I just have a question about the election expenses as well. Did you say that we already have access to some information that is being put together about some of the issues regarding locations or existence of polling stations and that kind of thing?
Through you, Mayor Shaw. Yeah, every election we take input from people. This election we did receive negative comments, specifically about fairgrounds, nothing about Boston, which was surprising somewhat. But even within that, we received less complaints on that than we did in the 2014 election about the hours of advanced polling. So in the 2014 election, we had advanced polling that would generally end at 5 p.m. each night. And we received a lot of complaints about that. This time we switched to 3 days of more intensive full-day advanced polling, and we took some reviews from that. Some locations it was very slow, Simcoe in specific, in the evening hours on the Saturday. So I think we can probably do some adjustments of the hours, but overall it was a much more efficient way to staff and run the election. And certainly, there was a few concerns from people in the west side and a few concerns from people in your ward as well. And we take those very seriously and want to ensure that they're addressed and ensure that we bring forward options for council to address that.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, but also, Madam Mayor, if I can ask a second question. I'm not sure if I followed. Where would I find this information if it's available now?
Through you, so a lot of the information would just be, so people would contact our office. I believe we only had, I personally only had 4 emails about the Fairland closure compared to the previous one. But we also do take notes from everybody who works at every polling location. So all our workers, we ask to do it and we compile it. We have been quite busy this term, so we haven't had too many debrief sessions yet with our election staff, but that would be the next step to do that. And I think a lot of our proposals are already kind of outlined on the website under our accessibility review. So every year after the election, the first thing we're required to do is prior to January 20th, we have to post publicly an accessibility review on our election, and a lot of the aspects of customer service issues that arose were directly related to that. So Delhi, we had significant concerns for some reason about the ramp, although we used that polling location in previous elections and have always used it, but this one for some reason we got multiple complaints about the ramp. Port Dover, we had issues around construction on the concrete just prior to the election, and thankfully it was dry. And even in Simcoe, up at the Emmanuel Baptist Church, they did road work the day prior to the election. They weren't working on it on election day, but some of the things that we've specifically identified are working with other areas to ensure that none of that work is going on, that contractors kind of have a blackout period around the election polling locations on those dates to ensure that those types of things don't do it. So it's always reviewing information as it comes in and observations on the day of.
Thank you, Andy. And so all of this is on the accessibility option on the county website.
Yeah, so under the clerk's, under 2018 elections, there's a report there that gives a good outline, and that's a good starter, and if you have follow-up questions, we're more than happy to answer it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So this is one of, I've got the 2017 budget. This is one that takes me back to 2016. And the approved budget in 2016 for the department was $711,600. 2017 was $724,300. 2018, $753,600. And now we've soared in 2019 to $878,600,000. I'm just curious, when we are seeing licensing revenues going down, meaning we're processing less stuff, how then, what adjustments are being made in that department to account for, in some ways, less work being put out?
I'll start off, and I don't know if Stephanie might want to jump in because I'm speaking a lot for Stephanie's area of oversight here. I would suggest prior, when Stephanie and myself began here in 2014, we did a review of a number of areas. We found that none of the lottery licensing files were in compliance with provincial standards. And we were very concerned that we would be in a situation where the province might come in and intervene with us. So doing the job right definitely takes a lot more time. In 2016, we did a lot more the overview of the business licensing. And we also do a lot of work with the special events processing. And a lot of this work is done, certainly in a lot of the fees we charge are done at a loss. We have a great idea of the actual cost of a lot of these fees. And because in 2016 and in 2017, we did a full review of all our licensing fees. So we have a cost of it, but we did not propose to council that we increased a lot of these things to full cost recovery. The reality was that it would just be very, very hard on the local community to accept it, even though our business licensing and other fees are significantly lower than surrounding municipalities. So I'd say that most of our staff, specifically in the areas of lottery licensing, with the amount of work we're now doing for special events, which we're doing at zero cost to get them free permitting, we are specifically busy from the months of April to, when would you say, September, October, providing support, and it's really, it's very hard to administer to the degree that we may be coming forward in future years saying that we need to add some substantial fees for mobile food premises at special events and peddlers at special events and other things like that we're currently doing to support the community at no cost. And I think one of the things that...
Okay, can I just, I'm going to stop you just there. The challenge I have with that argument, though, is the staffing complement in that department when it was costing $724,000 was actually more than the staffing complement now. And in 4 years, the cost of council services department has risen more than 21%. So
there hasn't been any change in the staffing complement.
well, I have the numbers from 2017, and I've got a staffing complement of 10 approved in 2016, a complement of 10 approved in 2017, and I've got 9.35. I think possibly what happened is some of that burden got shifted over to the CAO's department, or some of that decrease may have moved over. So
we've never had more than 8 staff. Yeah, no, that information is incorrect. I don't know what to say beyond that. Information's incorrect. I've been here for 5 years, and we've never increased staffing in council services. And it's something I generally believe working within our resources to find efficiencies in managing
So
staff to increase
the staffing
the
complement of
services.
9.35 is not even correct? That's on the budget? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know how that is our staffing complement because we have 7 members.
Is that because
Yeah.
of the interdepartmental?
Through the mayor, the staffing complement has been 9.35, as Andy's indicated, over the last 10 years, I believe. So I'm not sure where we're getting the 10.
I have the 2017.
We'll have a look.
Okay. So the question remains, though, we still have the cost of council services from 2017 to now has risen more than 20%. We're bringing in less revenue from the lottery side, which, don't get me wrong, I think is a great thing that we're bringing in less revenue, because I think, because I don't think in a lot of these cases that we should be charging people what we are charging for it. But there's something here that's concerning to me, that we've gone up, the 2019 budget increase is 16.6%.
If it assists at all, I do think that there likely has been significant changes throughout the, there was no staffing complement change, but I think it's correct to say that when Stephanie and I began there, we did notice that there was a great deal of discrepancy in the salaries and wages, and there was a number of staff, I think almost every position was gone through job evaluation. So a number of years ago, 2015, 2016, there was a significant salary and benefit increase to a number of positions there.
In 2015 and 2016. Okay, but then the change that I'm talking about is from 2016 until 2019. It's
Yeah,
increased 21%.
And then a big pressure this year is the interdepartmental charges of 85,000, which is not, it's not something that is directly in our control to set an interdepartmental charge like that. And I think since we're now paying for our space here, there would, the finance could correct me, there would be a reduction somewhere else associated to that.
So would it also, it's also correct that within services in the mayor or in the council services department, a portion of that services bundle is for advertising? Is that correct? Do you do any advertising?
Through you, yes. The majority of that is for committee ads. There's also other things that we occasionally have to do. We do have to give public notice around the election, and we also have to give, but that would come out of the election budget, which we came in at about 30 or 40 under for the election in 2018. Yeah, the other thing would be the crematorium. So we recently had that cemetery, so there would have been 2 ads there. We had to do an ad of a public notice for that, and then we had to do an advertisement, a statutory required advertisement after. So those are the major things, and one of the things that we try to suggest and have been kind of, we were hoping to get in place prior to this term of council starting, is we would like to switch to only advertising 3 times annually for all committee appointments, because right now what will happen is we've just closed committee appointments this week, and we'll have staff come back to us and say, oh, I need more people for this committee or that committee, and we'll go out immediately again and advertise right away again in 2 weeks, and that really just continues to add to our cost. So we'd like to focus on less ads and more prominence of them.
So when we look at that block then, if they're saying they're reducing it, since I can't see it, is there a reduction in the advertising? Did you?
So I think the reduction was based upon the actuals. Part of the problem with the actuals in an election, after an election year, is sometimes there is a bit of a merging. We have to run a lot of ads for the election in 2018, and sometimes we're running concurrent ads, and sometimes what can occur is we assign both of them to the election budget. So I think it is a fairly accurate statement. It's a $2,000 difference, but I think we can come in with that amount.
To reduce it?
They have reduced their advertising and printing by $2,000.
Okay.
The only other thing that's
And what's the
increased,
total for advertising?
advertising is $11,600, but that includes the $5,000 for the council-approved initiative for the two committee boards, the RFAB committee board. It was originally $10,000 for advertising, and council, through the council-approved initiatives, reduced them down to $5,000 each.
That's
For the-
advertising for those, that's where that's putting, that money that we
Yes.
withdrew the other day is in
Yeah.
advertising?
Yes, $2,500 each for each committee.
Because in 2016, we spent $3,600 on advertising was the approved budget. Counselor Martin?
I thought we specifically discussed the funding being used for things, and I can speak to RFAB because I'm on that committee, a trip, a tour. I was not under the impression that we were spending thousands of dollars on advertising for an established committee.
Through you, Mayor Chop, certainly the committees will spend the money as they desire, and I'll do a journal entry to get it in the right accounting at the end of the day. I don't want you to think that $5,000 has strings attached to it. The reason for the committee having the funding is so that the committee can decide how to spend it.
Okay, so if we take out that money, just out of curiosity, so 2016 was $3,600 in advertising. What are we in advertising now if we discount the two committees?
$6,600.
So in 3 years, and that's including a $2,000 reduction, right?
That's correct. Yeah, the previous
So
budget
it
was
would have been
$8,000.
$8,000 without that $2,000 reduction. So in 3 years, we've gone from $3,600 in advertising to $8,000 less. Now you're telling me we found better ways to do it, so we're to $6,000. That's still that's like almost double of what it used to be.
And through you, a lot of these costs are associated with the consolidated advertising program. So, I mean, certainly we have fixed costs. We don't determine who we advertise with, we just do. But, I mean, we had a lot of issues where we were advertising 4 times in 1 year for one committee, the Accessibility Advisory Committee. We had a lot of issues getting people appointed to it. And that's the reason why we said it's more efficient for us to do 3 big advertising things every time. So
I just posted a thing on Facebook the other day for advertising for the committees, the application's closing, and it went nuts in minutes. People were all over it, so I don't know that we need that. Could we maybe look at shaving? That would be an area perhaps that we could look at maybe getting more back in line.
Certainly, if council is just interested in reductions, I mean, the biggest area of increase that we have seen is really around meeting expenses here. We started with a very frugal budget for meeting expenses, and it is quickly exceeded. My office, almost all of that funds is just directly related to the food here at meetings. So we can, I mean, there are significant funds there to cut back on if council desires. It's something that is just generally a council direction.
Okay, that's an area, advertising is an area. It looks like what used to, and again, I'm going on the 2017 budget document because I can see what's in there. And I can't now. Seminars and training was at 24,000 in 2016, and I would be curious to know what that's at now for seminars and training.
Sorry, is that the actuals in 2016?
Was the approved budget, 24,200.
That's right, finance? I'm just questioning whether or not that's a correct number, because I don't think we've ever increased it that much.
All these numbers correspond when I take the 2017 and I put them with the 2018 budget book, and then I put that against the 2017.
Yeah, I don't think we were ever that low in that area. That's the challenge.
so that Andy knows, Andy, we were looking at the mayor and council services budget, not the council services budget, so that's where there's been some confusion.
Well, we could add them both together, right, to get the accurate, I've got the county manager's office